Today we're going to take clay and make it into a beetle box. If it's going to be a box that looks like a beetle. And you've got a handout with several different shapes of beetles. So we're going to use the table and kind of gently round things out so it looks a little more bug-like. Just remember, we do not want to pound this flat. It has to have thickness because it's going to be a box, and boxes do have thickness. And then the part that's going to be the lid, you can always take it and roll it a little bit to make it look a little rounder. And once you're happy with the general shape of the box, when you think it looks mostly like a beetle, then that's where you will see me, and I will slice your lid for you. So now my lid is sliced. You want to keep track of which end is your front. On the bottom part of the box, you're going to take a clay tool and lightly draw a line where you're going to carve. So when you're measuring the wall thickness, a good size to be would be as thick as your pinky. If you go too big, things explode in the kiln. If you go too thin, it can't support the weight of your lid. So that's why pinky width is a good size. Then we take a clay loop tool here, and you gently, that's the key word, gently carve away layers of the clay. And we're going to slowly go down as we go. The reason we don't just take this and try to dig down to the bottom, well, it's not a spoon. It's a very fragile tool. So we can't carve that deep with the tool without breaking it. That's why we just take it away layer by layer. You'll notice I'm stacking up the extras because they stay moist longer when you keep them together. And don't dig a hole to China. We don't want a hole in the bottom of your box. And once you think you've done deep enough, smooth with your finger. If you need to, you can give it a little squirt of water from one of my clay bottles. That makes it easier to smooth things out on the inside. As you're working, you may want to check and make sure that your lid and your box still fit. If they don't, we never ever take the lid and flatten it out to match the shape of the box. If the walls of the box get too wide, you would take them and squeeze them back into place because your lid didn't do anything wrong. Once you have the insides dug out, you got things smoothed out a little bit, then your lid is going to get some decoration. And remember, I said we're not adding legs with clay. We're doing that later on. So this is where you want to take your clay tool and you're going to make it look like your bug of choice. So some very careful carving. So I drew the lines first, then I'm using just the edge of the tool to try to carve away. And this is called relief carving. We're making a little bump that sticks up. And it's really subtle. And then if there's an edge there that you don't like, I just get it a little wet and smooth it out. And then it'll look more like a beetle. And let's say your beetle needs a separate head or some kind of pinchers. You're going to shape those out of clay, and then you have to decide if you want to attach them to the lid, if it's thick enough, or if you're going to attach them to the box. That's totally up to you. But whichever you do, you're going to use slip, which is just really, really wet clay, and a toothbrush. And my box is thick enough, my lid, I can attach it up here. So I brush where it's going to go, brush the part that's getting attached, and then press it on. That's called slip and score, and that's the proper way to put on pieces to help them stay together and not fall off when the clay gets dry. And then we repeat that for any little pinchers and things that you add to your beetle box. And if your beetle has tactile texture or real texture that you can feel, you can always see what clay tools I have in the box that you could press in, roll on, rub on to add that texture. If your beetle has visual texture where it's painted on, then that'll get taken care of whenever we paint these. Now, before we say we're all done, make sure you like how your box looks. If it's a little rough, you take a wet sponge, you get it wet at the sink, squeeze it out at the sink, and I can use that to wipe the box down, and it'll smooth things out a little more. Just don't lose track of which end is the front and which end is the back. And we're going to take a very skinny paintbrush and use it to make some little holes for your buggy legs. I'm trying to make sure that the holes go all the way through. And I'll repeat that on the other side and try to line them up. I'm making sure there's space between where I'm putting the hole and the top of the box. So then after firing, we can use pipe cleaners and put some little legs on here for our bug. And before you say you're all done, we need a name on the bottom. You could use the brush. You could also use a pencil. Pencils work great. All it does is get dirty. So name, and also get your class on the bottom. And so our lovely little friend doesn't have his top and his bottom get stuck together. We put a piece of newspaper between the layers and try to line them up so they match the best that you can. And then he will sit that way and dry.